Welcome to today's podcast interview. I brought on Zach White. Zach, welcome.
Heather, it's awesome to be here. Thanks so much.
For those new to you, please give a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
I call home Southwest Michigan, a little town here called Benton Harbor for all my Michiganders. Great to connect with you. About a mile from the water, beautiful in the spring and summer. And like I told you earlier, Heather, not so beautiful in the winter, but that's all right. You can't have great summers in Michigan without putting up with the winter time.
I have to
So,
tell you, summer of 21, I did a long road trip, like an 8,000-mile road trip over
wow.
just places I had never been. My brother and niece are in northern Kentucky, so that was kind of my home base while I went. Anyway, I drove through Michigan. I loved the UP because it had very much a mountain feel. So I kind of felt like I was at home. But unfortunately, I was so sad, and it was July. I took my paddleboard to go paddleboarding on, Lake Michigan. I was so excited.
Yeah.
It freaking was cloudy and rainy the whole week I was there.
Oh,
I
all
know.
right. Well, you need to come back and visit me. We'll do another lake run for you. But
Yeah.
pictured rocks up on Lake Superior is gorgeous. Lake Michigan is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So come check it out. We
Yeah.
got plenty of space on the beaches for you. And then you asked what I do, Heather. Essentially, I help leaders in engineering and technology to experience the career of their dreams in the context of the life of their dreams. So,
Yeah.
how do we build our career and balance our life and be happy along the way? It's way harder to do than it is to talk about. And so, coaching these leaders to that next level of success and fulfillment is my full time role here in owning my business, Oasis of Courage.
Well, I'd love for you to give a little background that you shared with me because, I think a lot of people, especially in our space that are coaching, is because we hit something, it could be called a rock bottom, a burnout, we hit a point in life and it was so painful that we want to help other people to avoid the same thing. So I'd love for you to share what life used to be like.
Yeah, I am a textbook case study of my mess becoming my message, Heather. And I am an engineer. Once an engineer, always an engineer. You can't take that part out of your soul if you have that in you. So I studied mechanical engineering at Purdue and went into my career like most engineers do, with a lot of ambition, a lot of hope and drive to go get promotions and make a big impact and make a lot of money and all the things, right? The things that I was told that I could do. And lots of people who loved me had spoken these, really encouraging things to me when I was young. You're so smart, you're so intelligent, you're going to do so well in your career. And uh, I didn't realize at the time they had created a very fixed mindset in me around my identity of
Mm,
intelligence. And engineers already have a lot of ego and this lone wolf mentality around our intelligence, and it was just amplified because of that. And the truth is, in the pursuit of success, I only had one strategy, and that strategy was to work harder and get smarter. If I wanted to get to the next level, just keep working, keep working, keep grinding. And you look around and there's a lot of examples of other people doing that. It's easy to conclude that that's the way to the top. And you look at some of the more senior leaders in our corporations and they don't have any life. They work all the time and they're constantly plugged in. And so your subconscious pays attention and it draws conclusions. This is the way. Well, unfortunately, my pursuit of success at work caused me to really avoid dealing with everything that was not working for me at home. And over time,
mm,
more and more areas of my life started breaking, and I didn't do anything to fix it because it was really uncomfortable and I didn't know how. But I did know how to go solve problems at work. I did know how to keep putting in hours at the office. And so I did that. And next thing you know, sitting across the table from a divorce attorney and looking at my life saying, how in the world did this happen? Completely depressed, in this place of embarrassment and shame and wondering, how did I end up in this burned out rock bottom place, to your point? And I'll tell you, in that moment, Heather, none of the success at work mattered at all.
mm.
It's like you would give it all up to just get your life back in order. And so the healing journey from that time of my life is where Oasis of Courage, my coaching company, was born. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Going through my own healing process is where lifestyle engineering became my new approach, but it was a long road to get there.
But you know what? I love how well, Dispenza describes it as people can change from a space of inspiration or from a space of like desperation, trauma, rock bottom, bankruptcy, divorce. And for me, I tend to see people wait until it's so bad and then they want change. Men, especially, tend to wait until mission critical, where I think women are more about, I'm uncomfortable. And then we start asking for help or reading the books or whatever. But can we take a step back and, similar to you, I follow the American dream, what we're conditioned to do, what we believe will create happiness, only to find out I wasn't happy. So, did you have to turn around and redefine what success meant for you?
Ooh, so much so.
Yeah.
And here's the way. So success is a tricky word, to your point. What does that really mean? And the thing that happened pre-burnout was I had this, written vision of success for my life that I
Yeah.
was very proud of. And like, this is where I'm going. I'm going to make it to this level in the organization, have this title, have this income, have this lifestyle, have all these things that I've dreamed about. And my marriage is going to look this way and da, da, da. And what happened at that time was that I actually used that definition of success that I'd created for myself, which, by the way, was rooted in all the wrong things, but we'll get to that. I used that place as my sanctuary, my getaway psychologically to avoid the pain of my current reality. Because, Heather, I'm on the road to success. This is just part of the heartache and heartburn of getting there. This is
Mm,
temporary because one day in the future, I'm going to
mm,
be somebody. I'm going to have this thing. And I was able to avoid being present to my current pain and current reality by escaping to a vision of the future.
mm.
Well, when I crashed and burned, your present makes enough noise to your point about desperation
Yeah.
that suddenly that picture of the future just fizzles. It disappears. It's like all you can feel is the pain of current reality. And it pulled me into the present. And as hard as that was, it's exactly what I needed because my life isn't happening 10 years from now. My life is happening right now. And the truth is, I wasn't really happy at all in that first 5 years after college and 5 years of marriage. I was very unhappy, but I tricked myself. I really would say I lied to myself that I'm happy because I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I really wasn't happy at all. And it was that presence of dealing with all the dissatisfaction and the lack of fulfillment and asking hard questions. What does success really mean?
Mm.
What is my actual purpose in life? What really fulfills me? What do I value that I have not been honoring in my life up to this point? And it was so much just the inner work. It was dealing with right here, right now, who am I? And peeling all those layers back and dealing with a lot of negative emotion that I had suppressed for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that's where everything shifted. And the
Yeah.
foundation of what is success completely changed at that moment.
I have a question for you because this is where I found myself. Did you used to play that I'll be happy when fill in the blank? I'll be happy when I get the next promotion, when I'm making more money, when I get the bigger house.
Absolutely. It's
I
that when
know.
then fallacy. It's such a
Oh,
cognitive, it's a distortion of reality that we create in our conscious mind to just make sense of all the garbage that we're actually feeling. It's like, okay, well, when I get the next promotion, then I'll start working less hours. When I have the bigger paycheck, then I'll start, investing more for the future. When I fill in the blank, yeah, there's all these different examples where it showed up. One of my great friends, James Reed, he's a coach. He calls it the runner-up mentality. It's like, we
mm,
just keep pushing these things off into the future. And I had that so bad, Heather. I can't even tell you. I mean, my whole life was one big when then prior to my
yeah.
divorce.
I think one of my wake up calls and I, for me, like writing a book was very therapeutic. I got to like feel through all the things. But for me, a huge aha was I was on vacation thinking about my next vacation. That's how not present I was. So anyway, I'm completely different. I call myself a
Yeah.
recovering type A. I used to be busy, 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 scheduling months in advance my social calendar. And now I'm like, not that I'm non-committal, but I don't make plans anymore. I love quiet. I love silence. I love being alone.
Hmm.
Night and day differences for me. So I would love for you to share, along your journey where you're at today, because I know you've been coaching for like 4 years, right?
Full time for, yeah, about 4 years,
Yeah.
which is crazy. It feels like just the other day I left my engineering career to do this full time, but yeah, it's been 4 years now.
What I have found for me is it really has come down to an identity shift. Who I was versus even where I'm at, and that highest self, like who I feel I really am, and kind of this unlearning, relearning, and showing up. But I'd love to hear from you. Was that for you on your journey, this identity shift?
I think identity shift is a great phrase to describe it.
Yeah.
And even if we didn't use those words, I do believe that's what's happening. Everybody's experience with it is different, but identity, the core beliefs that drive our life,
Mm.
when those change, the trajectory and the results of our lives change with it. And so, yes, I definitely experienced an identity shift then. And the identity shifted away from the having of certain external things that the world told me I was supposed to want,
Mhm.
and shifted into an internal drive to make a certain impact on the lives of the people who I wanted to impact, independent of how or what happens. It really, for me, the purpose that I wrapped my life around, which is still to this day exactly as I phrased it during the very first coaching session when I pinned it, is that I am an oasis along life's journey that gives you courage to walk on.
Yeah.
And that idea of, if I can simply be an encouragement to someone else to take their next step, and if I can witness them stepping up with courage and taking that step, and then give them a big hug on the other side of that comfort zone that they just broke through, like, that is the only thing that I need to do to say that I've lived with the impact and the purpose I want to experience in life, and it's extraordinarily fulfilling. And so my whole identity changed from Zach the engineer, Zach the senior manager, Zach the future vice president, to, Zach the son, Zach the brother, Zach the friend who helped to encourage someone to this next step, this next outcome. And so many other things come with it. Look
Yeah.
at that. I am blank. What we fill in that blank, that's some of the most important language in the entire dictionary for you. And for me, those words dramatically changed during those years following my divorce.
Okay, so you've highlighted the word courage. I know it's definitely part of your branding and something I want to talk about. I actually have a Ray Dunn mug, for, I think all the women know who Ray Dunn is, but and it says courage on it. On the back of it is the lion from Wizard of Oz. And for me, I think that I do feel that creating change in life comes down to a committed decision, and it is that courage to do it, because we could talk about comfort zone, right? And I call it a boring ass box. But it's very known, it's very predictable. And most people I have found would rather live in known and predictability, even if they're miserable, because at least they know what's coming, versus realizing we are unlimited beings with infinite potential when we get out of our own way. So I guess that's one of my big branding messages and neon flashing lights. Get
Yeah,
out of your own way. So can we talk about courage and how you preach that from your angle?
100%. And I'll make one little distinction from my perspective. I like the boring ass box phrase. That's really true and funny for so many people. That's exactly what it's experienced as. But when I think of the comfort zone, which really is a big part of our message, and crush comfort, create courage. The C4 lifestyle, that is an oasis of courage mantra. My clients and I talk about this all the time. But what is the comfort zone? And the one little distinction I would add is that the comfort zone, as it's experienced, does not mean pleasant, comfortable. It
Mm,
means familiar, comfortable. So you
mm,
can be very unhappy, very depressed, in a lot of pain, emotionally and even physically, and be in the center of your comfort zone.
mm,
And it may not even feel boring to you. It could be high octane, stress addicted, cortisol addicted, adrenaline addicted living at a rapid pace, incredibly busy, feeling like you're giving your all, like you're not bored, but
Yeah.
that place is your comfort zone. And
Mm.
it's not the place of your dreams. It's not the place of your deepest fulfillment and happiness. And so I like to draw that distinction for people because they hear us say comfort zone as coaches, get out of your comfort zone. And
Yeah.
they're like, I'm not comfortable. Like, I hate my life. This isn't comfortable at all.
Yeah.
But that experience may be dead center in the comfort zone for you if when you wake up out of bed, we've referenced Dispenza a lot today, like if the emotional pattern that you turn on the moment you roll out of bed is stressed and addicted to this experience of whatever it is, that is the comfort zone for you. So
Yeah.
courage to me, why do I preach this message so much? It's because for you to make that committed decision and to act on that decision, which I'm sure, Heather, for you, like that's a requisite of a true decision as it's followed by action.
Yeah.
But that takes courage.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because those decisions mean facing fear, facing the discomfort of doing something different. And even if we just take it at a pure biological level, like if you're going to shift the pattern of your nervous system and act differently, it takes energy and intention and disruption of something that would have been the easier path. Like your body will more naturally do what it's always done. And so if you're going to go another direction, it does take more effort. It does take, a level of willingness to go against the grain, so to speak. And courage to me is the one best word that describes the character and the quality of a person who will consistently show up and do that. And when you do, suddenly that unlimited possibility of human potential opens up for you.
Yeah.
Because truly, any direction you want to press up against those edges, the box is no longer there for you. You can keep going as far as you want to go. And so, courage to me is the catalyst of creating our dreams. Because none of your dreams are found inside your comfort zone. They're all on the other side. So
Yeah.
without courage, you're stuck.
So something else that came to mind to me when you were talking about this idea of comfort zone, I guess another way I talk about it is living life in autopilot. Just
Totally.
going through their motions. And are you familiar with Ed Milet?
Oh yeah, love Ed.
I love Ed. But I remember when I first, he spoke at Summit of Greatness. And when he walked on stage, I was like, what a douche this guy's gonna be. But he is
He's kind of like a
amazing.
musclehead,
Right.
big guy.
He's like,
Yeah.
so don't judge a book by its cover. But the guy has a huge heart. And then I got to meet
Yeah.
him. Huge, huge heart, who happens to be super rich. But anyway, Ed Milet, I think he talks about this beautifully. And because I'm so visual, I want to share this. He talks
Please.
about our comfort zone as like a thermostat. And so if your set point, what autopilot is 75 degrees. And this is what I want to ask you about self-sabotage. When things get better in life, so let's say you're used to dating terrible partners, and then you meet someone who treats you really well, we will sabotage, be like, well, that's odd behavior. Or do you know, like 70% of lotto winners blow it in the first 3 to 5 years, again, because it got better then. But also on the opposite, when things get bad, we'll do whatever we have to do to get back to that set point.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that set point at 75 is 75% of your potential. So do you talk much about self-sabotage?
Oh, I don't think you can coach and not talk about
Okay.
self-sabotage. People maybe not like that phrase. You can call it what you want, but I 100% agree with Ed and every other great coach out there who knows that this is a truth around how our nervous system and subconscious mind behaves. Gay Hendricks writes about it in The Big Leap, calls it the upper limit problem. There's so much great material and evidence, documented scientific evidence that we do this in our lives. And I'll even tell you in my own example, recently, Heather, my business has been growing. We've been serving more and more engineering leaders around the world, and it's been amazing. And I caught myself just leaning back, taking it easy. The cash is coming in, the clients are coming in, and I take my foot off the gas, right? Because things are going up and up. And next thing you know, the revenue's back down and we're struggling to find leads and I'm not closing new clients. My energy was off. It's like, what happened? And it's this exact same thing. And I am a coach. So I just, for people to recognize it's not a judgment or something broken in you. It's something we need to be very conscious of. So, self-sabotage can show up so many different ways, but I think awareness is the starting point, right? Getting out of the autopilot what I call life by default and getting into a place of intention, or what I call life by design. I'm an engineer, and I think in these terms. It's like, how do we get out of a default life and get into a designed life? And the designed life that I want is a business that continues to grow even when things are good. In fact, I build on momentum to compound my success. That's my designed life. But
Yeah.
my default life is to relax when things are good, to take it easy when I can pay the bills and I don't need to push to that next level. And so just being aware is the starting point, because now we can make a conscious choice to show up differently.
Okay. This was like just a huge aha the way you just shared that. And so again, I'm very visual. I have to draw pictures. For those that are like, I don't self-sabotage, let's talk about symptoms of self-sabotage. So for example, procrastination. 80% of adults admit to procrastinating. And for example, if you wake up and hit the snooze button in the morning, the first thing you're doing each morning is procrastinating on your day. But some other symptoms of self-sabotage, constantly feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, boundary issues, etc. So I guess, could we talk more about, you're right, awareness is step number one. So once we become aware of our behaviors, talking ourselves out of things, waiting, and here's another form of self-sabotage. I need more education. I need another degree. I'm
Oof.
not ready yet. Those are all
Yes.
different, those are all
Yes.
spectrums on this sabotage scale. So here's my question for you. What could you teach, or as a takeaway, provide someone with, what could they do today to help raise their set point?
Think of it this way. We have the thermostat, and when you're at your average, your normal, your 75 degrees, you are taking a certain level of responsibility and therefore claiming power at just enough level to maintain 75. When it starts to drop, what you begin to do is take a greater degree of responsibility and therefore claiming your power in life to go make things happen, right? You step in. There's no more excuses. There's no more blaming. There's no more complaining. You take agency and control and power to go get things done. Nobody can get in your way. You make it happen. You become powerful. And that power raises the heat. And when you get above 75 and things start to get a little better than you're used to, we start to release that power and we give it back to others. And so your examples are spot on. What we do is we start to blame things outside of our control. We blame the economy. We blame other things. It even could go as extreme as manifesting in our body. You'll get sick. I've got clients who they finally land the big meeting with the vice president of engineering. They get this opportunity for the exposure they've always wanted. And then they get sick the night before the big meeting, right? And they have to cancel it. Like, that is a perfect example of where the subconscious will even sabotage at a level of our health. And it happens all the time. So you find a reason, consciously or subconsciously, to give away your power. And you don't take responsibility to come back down to that 75. So how do we turn that into an action? Well, here's the key. Be relentless to take radical responsibility for your life. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter how that thing got here. Just to say, how can I take, and I like the number 4, how can I take 4% more responsibility for this area of my life? My career. How can I just take 4% more responsibility? If I really cared about my career getting to the next level, if that's a goal that actually matters to me, what would it look like to take 4% more responsibility? I don't need to go from 75 to 100, just 75 to 79. Can I just get 4% better? And what would that look like? Maybe you would make that phone call today instead of waiting till tomorrow. Maybe you would schedule that meeting that you've been putting off. Maybe you'd have that difficult one-on-one with the person who you're not getting along with right now, and you'd confront the issue, right? Whatever it is, ask yourself, how can I claim more power and take more responsibility for my life? And whatever answers come in, trust that intuition. Just take the action quickly. Don't overthink it. And that's where engineers go way wrong. We love to overprocess things. Don't do that. Just trust yourself. Don't overanalyze. Take action quickly. And I think if you'll do that one practice every day, say, what's an area of my life that I want to level up? And how could I take 4% more responsibility for that area right now and put that action in play? You're going to be well on your way to seeing that set point raise, and it becomes the new normal
Yeah.
in your life over time.
Okay, so I want to ask a real world example. So yours is going to be an example, but I want listeners to imagine, okay, I did this in my finances, my health, my relationships, my career, business, whatever. But for you, when things were going really well in business, you're like, hell yeah, and we had momentum, and you took your foot off the gas and kind of got comfortable, right? Kind of like, oh, I can just ease out. What did you do? Because then, things started to drop. What did you do to get back into and create that forward focus and daily ritual so that doesn't happen again?
Hmm. So I always go back to the foundation first. As soon as I detect that I'm drifting in terms of my trajectory, things are not going well, I'm upper limiting, I'm self sabotaging, I go back to the foundation. So, what is that for me? First, it's my mindset. I go back to the beliefs that are core to who I am, and I do my journaling, I do my meditations, I get back into what are the things that I believe in my mindset. And also, Heather, where have I allowed a mindset to creep in that may have caused that self sabotage? I get curious. What belief happened? Oh, I'm not worthy of this growth, or I'm not ready for the next level of growth. Like, I go with my coach, right? Coaches need coaches too, and we explore what may have occurred in terms of my mindset that caused that downturn. So I go back to that. Then I look at my purpose. What are those core values and purpose for my life? And I reground myself in why this work matters. Why do I want what I want in the first place? Why did I set the goal to grow the company? Is that still something that I want? Let's reground myself in my purpose for the work. And then assuming nothing's changed there, and it rarely does, but getting present to it is what matters,
Yeah.
right? Because I let it drift into my unconscious. So I need to bring it back and shine a light on my why.
Yeah.
And then I come back and look at the vision. Okay, this is where I'm going. This is my destination. I know it's worth it. I've already gotten clear on my purpose. Now I'm clear on what we want to do, the destination. Let's get to work. Now the daily disciplines and actions flow very easily with that clarity from the foundation. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they just want to plug in little hacks and tactics and tools, cold showers, bulletproof coffee, if you just put in all these high performance habits, then you're going to be fine and you're going to take off towards your goal. But I have found none of those things are truly sustainable if you don't build it on the strong foundation.
Yeah.
And for me, it's mindset, purpose, vision. If we can get those three rock solid as far as pillars of your life, it just comes easily in terms of tactics and execution.
Okay, so Zach, that was money. And I love how you shared that, because look, we're taught to seek externally. Oh, I just need to push harder. I need a better strategy. I need to spend more money. I talked to somebody just a couple months ago. This woman who previously high achiever, kind of like the number one real estate agent in her region, kicking ass, taking names. And then she fell off the wagon and her health kind of went to shit and her negative self-talk. And so we talked through all this and I was like, yeah, that's a mindset problem. She's like, I can't believe you're saying that, because I literally was just thinking about how I need to spend more on marketing. And look, again, that's a conditioning that it's outside of us. And I love how you took, I love radical responsibility, but you went back in, it's internal.
Yes.
I love the idea that life is a projection of our internal state. Life is a mirror. And okay, I got to share this with you. This is how I learned it. And for me, it was a very expensive lesson. Back in 2020, I joined this 12-month mentorship brand builder program. Very expensive, thousands of dollars. And it was all about strategy and placement and blah, blah, blah. There was no mindset work. And I followed all to the T, everything they taught me, and literally zero ROI, $0. And until I had to take radical responsibility and realize, oh my gosh, I had a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and my actions were procrastination. that was my wake up call, that I was like, oh, well, someone who has self doubt and imposter syndrome cannot lead and help others.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that was how I had that identity shift and realization that, oh shit, it's an inside game.
Yeah. Heather, I have an amazing client named Kavita who for 6 years was doing everything she could figure out how to do to get promoted to director of engineering. And just brick wall after brick wall, could not land that job internally or externally, and just completely confused. What's wrong? What am I missing? How am I not good enough? I look at these people who are getting the opportunities. I'm smarter than them. I'm looking at this like, what's wrong with me? And over time,
Yeah.
that mindset of self doubt and questioning just took such deep root to where she almost stopped trying. It's like, I'm not going to do this. Well, I shared with her exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Look, I guarantee you this is not a skill gap. I guarantee you this is not a capability or talent issue. It's a mindset issue. Let's start working together. And we did that foundational work for her. Director of engineering in 6 months, vice president of engineering 1 year later. So it's so true what you're
Yeah.
saying. And I just want to
Yes.
acknowledge and validate, like, it's not as much the specific action as the energy and the mindset behind the action. You still need to take action. It's not like Kavita just sat in her room by herself and
Right.
did nothing. She still had to step into the workplace, but she did many of the same things that she was doing before we met with a completely different mindset and energy.
Yeah.
And that is what changed the outcome. And it's not woo woo. It's not like, it's real and it
Yeah.
works. And, the science is there to support how these things change others, but it's so important.
Dude, it's quantum physics 101. Everything is energy. What you put out, you get back. And,
Come on.
something that comes to mind, I remember, I'm a little spicy, but somebody had posted something on Facebook about, hey, and I got tagged in it. I was like, well, don't tag me in that. But anyway, they're like, hey, what's your marketing tactic to get more clients? And my response, I don't chase, I attract. And I don't. And maybe you've experienced this too, but I've definitely heard this, get in the DMs. You got to send 100 DMs today to hopefully get, 1%, 10%. I was like, I've never done that. That feels needy and disgusting energy. And I'm not going to do that. And so, actually, could we touch on that a little bit about
Sure.
the idea of energy and how I thought it was Dispenza, but it's actually Wayne Dyer who said it first, that we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. So back to that set point, if you believe
Mm-hmm.
you're a 6-figure, 7-figure earner, that's the lifestyle you will get. If you don't believe, then you're going to stay at your whatever job. So let's talk about energy and how that's, you got to get in alignment.
Mm-hmm. What I tell every single client I work with, and these are very analytical, intellectual leaders, right? My clients are engineers, and many of them
Yeah.
have never done any kind of mindset work before working with me. Every single one of them, the first thing we talk about with regard to energy is that energy comes before strategy, period. If your energy is wrong, then nothing that I tell you to help you in your career will work.
Yeah.
So, like, energy before strategy. And I will take the bold enough stance to say that's true in every single area of business and life. A company that says we won because we had a great strategy, if you go do the work and dig in and explore, you're going to find that the energy was right and existed prior to executing on that strategy every single time. And companies who say their strategy didn't work and the strategy is what failed them, almost every time you can find another company who had the same strategy and succeeded.
Yes.
So energy before strategy, like, if that's all you take away, it's enough in my opinion, because it gets you started in the right direction.
Yeah.
But how do we create the energy? And this is where it gets really exciting. And also for some people it can be overwhelming, but it's like we got to keep it simple, because you open up that can and let's face it, it's a big exciting can. There's a lot in there. You mentioned quantum physics, and quantum is a word that 5 years ago you barely heard on social media. Now, quantum leaps and quantum physics is showing up on Facebook threads from my grandma. It's like, wow, how did everybody's talking about it? What does that really mean?
Yeah.
Well, start with the basics, right? Start with the basics. And my first question to everybody would simply be, what is the quality and quantity of your energy now?
Hmm.
How would you assess that? Right? And just the question kind of gets you into a space of like, well, what does that really mean? And what does quality of my energy, how would I describe that? And what am I thinking about? Is it something in my physical body that I'm feeling? Is it something that I'm thinking? How much energy do I have? Is this physical? Is this emotional? Is this spiritual? To me, just that little inventory. Let's take stock.
Mhm.
What is the quality and quantity of your energy now? And what would it look like for us to put actions in place to improve the quality and the quantity of energy that you bring into this moment?
Mm.
And back to presence, right? We talked earlier about not living in the future or the past, but living now.
Yeah.
And that's the starting set of questions that guides the actions with my clients. It's like, let's just get curious around that. But I'm curious, Heather, for you, where would you take it from there? Or like when you think about energy with clients, like how do you unpack that topic? It's a big one.
What's coming to mind, and I learned this back in 2017 at my first Tony Robbins event, UPW, Unleash the Power
Woo,
Within.
woo, woo.
Um,
Been there.
yeah, but what's coming back to me is what Tony taught. And, like we talked before recording, Tony was part of my journey, but for me, I wanted something much deeper and sustainable. And for me, that was very surface level, hustle, grind, rah, rah shit. But here's what I did get from Tony that I like. 3 steps. State. So, what is your emotional state? And that's something I talk about, the emotional guidance scale. This is something you can Google. But I have found most people are sitting in those lower vibes. So, we can talk vibes
Totally.
and frequency here. So, your emotional state first. And a client of mine recently, he's like, holy, now I understand why I didn't get the job, because his energy going into the interview. So anyway, the first step is state, your emotional state. You got to like have that belief and the feel good expectation. Then
Mm-hmm.
Tony talks about story. That's whether are you giving an empowering story or disempowering. And finally, then you're right, then
The
strategy.
strategy. Yeah.
State, story, strategy. So for me, like even when it comes to clients or wanting things, this is Dispenza stuff, clear intention, elevated emotion, but
Yeah.
I get really clear on what I want. And it literally has come to me. Like, I really want to work with sales reps. And then I had someone reach out, hey, would you be interested in coming to talk to my sales team? I wasn't out there trying to make it happen, posting on social. I had the intention, it was done, and it came to me. So I just want people to understand, like, you are so powerful.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah, and the vibration and the emotional scale is a great way to start helping people understand when we talk about quality of energy.
Yeah.
That's a really important dimension of that. And
Yeah.
so definitely Google emotional scale and understand that. And the
Yeah.
only thing I will caution people on who begin that journey for the first time is it's easy to infer from this conversation between Heather and Zach that therefore the best way to live all the time is only at the top of the emotional scale. And we become afraid or even judgmental or feel guilty or shameful about experiencing low vibe emotions. And that's not what we're saying. At least it's not what I'm saying. I'm assuming for you too.
Yeah.
Like we need to be willing to experience sadness or a negative emotion if that's what is present. Like
Yeah.
if you pretend it's not happening, it's just going to store itself in your body and wreak havoc in the subconscious instead. So
Yeah.
it's not that negative emotion or low vibes are bad. This is not
Yeah.
an ethical or good versus bad kind of conversation. It's simply an awareness that when you're there, that's what you're going to attract and get more of. And that's not the energy you want to bring into the moments of your life where you're seeking to advance and move forward towards your vision and your goals. Like
Yeah.
you want to be very intentional. Like if I need to experience something at the low level of vibration, go create a space for that to
Mm-hmm.
process and deal, or get with your coach or get with somebody to deal with that. Then when you go into the job interview, you sure as hell better be at the top of that emotional scale, right? Like that's the time where you want to be at high vibes. So
Yeah.
it's important to understand you're still a whole person. You're going to experience the whole spectrum. and that's okay.
Yes. And thank you for that clarifying point. I never want someone to think that my life is rainbows and unicorns. I am a human too. I have what I call off days, off moments, but through this training and lifestyle, I don't stay there. But I
Exactly.
feel them. I give myself grace and space, and you got to feel it to heal it. So do not
Yeah.
suppress, express.
Yep. And I would say too, Heather, it's very true. And Tony talks about this and others, that if you're in a negative state, but you need to get to a positive vibe temporarily for an experience or an intention of what's on your calendar right now, you can do that. It
Yeah.
takes intention and willpower and energy, and it's a skill you can develop. But if you use that as a way to avoid
Mm.
dealing with the negative, you're going to end up with a problem eventually. So, I think people can fall in error on both sides. Like, oh, well, I'm sad today, so I just have to be sad until I'm not sad anymore. It's like, well, that's not necessarily true. You
Yeah.
can absolutely shift into a place of joy and gratitude for a season here, or even just an hour, if that's what needs to happen to make the most of this next opportunity. But then you need to be intentional to come back and say, all right, how about that sadness? All right, where is that? What's going on here? Let's deal with it.
Yes. Just don't get stuck there. All
Don't get
right.
stuck there.
Question for you, because we've touched on so many good points today. What do you feel is a key takeaway you want listeners to get?
You know, I would use the word clarity. We didn't actually touch on it specifically, but there's so many threads here. The risk that I would see of somebody hearing our conversation so far is maybe a sense of overwhelm, or how do I begin, or what do I do with this? And for me, one of the key takeaways of my entire journey into the success I enjoy today and the growth that I'm experiencing is clarity. And clarity allows me to move forward with ease and power.
Yeah.
So take this whole dialogue and just pick one thing that you will clearly and intentionally move forward on, take action on, and just say, I know this. I may not understand everything or be ready to do everything that Zach and Heather talked about, but this piece stood out to me. Maybe there's something that really resonated, or you felt your spirit kind of leap, your energy leap when it was mentioned. Go back to that thing and create clarity around an intentional single point. And then from there, you'll have an intuition where to go beyond that. But too often we get lost because we have so much in our heads, and it's all very general, and it's unclear where to go next, and then we procrastinate and do nothing because we're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So my encouragement to folks would be, go create clarity around just one thing.
Yeah.
Take action on it right away, and then you can come back and get some more.
Or how easy it is to always be consuming and never be applying. So yeah,
Guilty.
I love that.
That was my whole life prior to becoming a coach. Read 50 books a year and do nothing about it.
And I used to be, I called it self-help junkie. I was there. Yes. Okay. I'd love to wrap up the interview. So I have a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Bring it.
What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Life is happening for me, not to me.
Yes. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Currently reading The Having by Su Yun. Really interesting book about presence and practicing having what you have. And the concept for me was totally new, or a new spin on a familiar idea that has been really powerful. So The Having.
Okay. Never heard of it. I like that. Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
This is a personal one, but younger self, pick an age. When I was 13, my parents divorced, and I went through a really deep period of depression after that. And the advice that I would give my younger self would actually be to allow other men who loved me into my life, because I was so angry at my dad that I pushed away relationships with other men and didn't receive some of the fathering and the influence that could have been there if I had just been willing or open to it. And I've now, since counseling and therapy and coaching, done a lot of work to recover from that gap. Yeah. And so I would go back and tell 13-year-old Zach, it is safe to allow other men into your life.
Well, that was so vulnerable. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Zach, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Heather, this is amazing. You're amazing. Thanks for the invitation.